Hello, this is Ron Barfknecht with another daily dose from Ron Barfknecht. Today's topic is the recently released IPCC report on global warming, which has given us definitive proof that, yes, we are become our own nemesis. And it's real, and it's essentially irreversible. Now, the signs have been clear for many years, but there have been continuous doubters and oil company funded naysayers who say it's methane from cows, volcanic activity, regular cycles of the weather that has done all these radical changes in our normal weather. Now, the clear signs have been the Antarctic ice cap, which is losing approximately 36 cubic miles per year, and most spectacularly the piece of side of Rhode Island that fell off in 2002. More recently, they've discovered Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa has lost 82% of its snow cover and ice cover. No longer the photogenic beauty of postcards past. The Chinese, to their own chagrin, have discovered that 67% of the Himalayan glaciers have receded, which is devastating for them because Western China already suffers from severe water shortages. And without the snow runoff and the regular replenishment of the water supply, further vast areas of China, indeed Asia in general, will become essentially deserts. Now, in the northern hemisphere, it's also affected Canada. In fact, just last year, a 66 square kilometer section of ice shelf broke off from Ellesmere Island. And it was quite spectacular. When one satellite passed, it was there, and they suddenly noticed it was gone. It was something of a minor seismic event, as I recall. But more generally, the problem is the permafrost is melting all along the whole northern crescent, all the way from Russia through Canada, Alaska. Now, this is essentially bad for many reasons, not only the people who live there and the infrastructure, their houses, their roads, but you must understand that permafrost is a vast store of carbon and methane gas will be produced when the bacteria decomposes all that dead organic matter, which will simply accelerate the problem. The Greenland ice cap is receding, and essentially it's ruining the ecology already. The Alaskan government has already reported what they call drunken forests, the trees leaning every which way because they can't sustain their own weight. The ground can't hold them anymore. Now, not to say there is no mitigation. In fact, they've already begun. Work has begun in Norway, one of their Arctic islands, on a tunnel, some 120 meters long. It's going to cost them $5 million to build it. It's supposed to open in 2008 for business. Now, what they're going to do is create a Noah's Ark of seeds, and not just any seeds. They're going back before the hybrid variants that were produced to conform to the climate now. They're going back to the earlier varieties that are genetically pure. They're going to collect all 1.5 million varieties of crops from around the world, everywhere they can find, and freeze them in this huge tunnel that is roughly 80 feet above any projected worst-case high water level, so they can't be flooded. And they're going to be frozen at something like minus 23 degrees Celsius to maintain a, shall we say, a restocking capability. Because there was a seed storehouse in the Philippines that was wiped out, I believe last year in a recent natural disaster. One of their typhoons destroyed that bank. So they came up with the idea of creating a frozen seed bank, as it were, a Noah's Ark for the food supply. So indeed, they're anticipating nothing really drastic until 2100, although things will get worse progressively, they assume. Now, in a worst-case scenario, of course, if all of the ice caps melt, Greenland, the Arctic, the Antarctic, for example, they assume it'll raise the ocean level some 3 feet. However, there are some predictions that, of course, warm water expands. So the increase in tidal surges and also in absolute water depth will be much greater in certain areas. Now, it's going to affect essentially the far north and around the equatorial belt. So essentially the far north will become warmer and wetter, and the equatorial belt will become far hotter and drier, already worsening things for the developing countries, if indeed there are any countries left after all of this. The civil chaos and the political fallout will be enormous. Water wars and food wars, migrant wars, because the people will not be able to live where they live now. Millions will be either killed by the worsening storms, which were supposed to be magnitude far greater than Katrina, and the typhoons in the Pacific and the hurricanes in the Atlantic are going to be enormously more powerful than they are now, they predict. Also, there's the problem of the Gulf Stream. With all this fresh water, it's going to make it harder for the Atlantic Ocean to circulate the water from the equator up through the Caribbean, past the northeast coast of the United States, and over to Europe. Now, if that slows, and in fact it is slowing already, measurably so, and if it stops, then we have the day after tomorrow scenario. Huge masses of radically freezing air and high winds and massive snowfall, which would make essentially most of the northern hemisphere uninhabitable. Now, this is not to say that mankind will die, because mankind has survived ice ages before us, and certainly the more advanced types, being in the present now and with all our vast store of wealth and technology and knowledge. If the cavemen could survive, I'm sure we can. It's so simple, the Neanderthal could do it, as it were. So, but life as we know it now with our factories, our air conditioning, and our SUVs will not be possible for centuries, because even if we shut off all the factories and scrapped all of our vehicles and our jets and all our civilized equipment, it will take at least 2 centuries to clear the atmosphere. So, in essence, all this talk of stopping global warming is false. All we can do is mitigate the damage and try to adapt to the coming conditions. And that's the Daily Dose for today. Thank you for listening. Good night.